Well, hello there, YouTube land. I am super excited today to be joined by one of the premier casting directors here in the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic region, Erica Arvold. Erica, how you doing today?
Hey, Kurt, I'm very good. I'm happy to be on here, and I don't know. I look forward to the hour. Whatever's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know that you are super busy, especially because I've auditioned for you recently, and so I know that you
Like
you are
probably 700 times. Like,
you.
let's
I
get
know.
real. Like
Yeah.
it is. We got a lot of roles where that are going on right
You
now.
got a lot of roles for multiple projects. I mean, I know you're doing a lot. So you have, I recently looked up your IMDb and your credits are a mile long. And when your assistant Christian sent over your bio for me, I was like, if I read this bio during the Zoom, it's going to take up half the time.
Don't read it. I would be mortified and embarrassed. And honestly, when people read it, I'm like, who is that person? I'd like to meet them because
Well, there's so much. It's incredible. You've done a lot throughout your casting career, and I just want to highlight a few of your casting credits: House of Cards, Turn, The Good Lord Bird, Lincoln, Harriet, the upcoming Hulu limited series Dopesick, the upcoming Blumhouse film The Black Phone, and a huge Warner Brothers feature film that I won't name because I don't know if I'm allowed to name.
Thank you.
But yeah, some amazing projects, and these are just kind of the more recent ones. And then I looked down into like your history, and you've been casting since, or at least working in casting since the early '90s. And some of your credits are some like really classic movies like Rudy, like Natural Born Killers, like A League of Their Own. Like some of these are amazing.
It's crazy because when you're in it, you're just in it, doing your craft, doing your art, meeting people, collaborating.
Yeah.
And then, it's like hindsight, you're like, holy cow, I had no idea that I knew it was special. I knew we were committed. I knew the people were phenomenal and the actors were phenomenal. But like there's no lightning in a bottle. And so when I do look at those credits, I'm just like, I'm so lucky. I'm just so lucky. I've also worked my butt off to continually be in hopefully a lucky position, but really, it's how it starts. And I started with a mentor named Jane Alderman, and my very first film that I got to see, The Wind's Blowing. We're gonna have a lot of ghosts coming in and out.
I was just gonna say.
Is because my first film that really I got to look around and see what a film set does and was introduced to all the departments was a very well-received movie called Backdraft that Ron Howard directed.
Yeah.
And like, if that's the bar when you're 19 or 20 years old, like, I just thought that was my introduction. So of course that's what it's
right.
Like, and I just never, I'm stubborn enough to never leave that mentality.
That's amazing. And that actually leads into what I wanted to ask you first was way back when you first started, what was it that piqued your interest in casting? What was it that kind of led you to doing what you're doing now?
Well, I didn't know casting existed. I grew up without a TV in Blacksburg, Virginia with, totally, my dad is an architect, went to school to be an architect. My mother's a teacher. I've always been very passionate about education. She teaches educators how to teach math, essentially. And I thought there were actors and directors. I had truly no idea, this is pre-internet, that anything besides actor or director existed.
And that's probably most people, right? Because those are the people that we see. Yeah, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
Exactly. And so I remember applying to theater school because, like my dad becoming an architect, I figured you'd go to school to be in the business of film. And what's the better way to get into the business of film than to learn kind of the ABCs, meaning methodology, and, akin to, say, drafting skills. I needed to learn a methodology. So I picked some conservatories to audition for, and I got into DePaul University, which used to be the Goodman School of Drama. And so it was known as the theater school. It still is the theater school at DePaul University. And I was the very first theater studies major ever at that school. I was their guinea pig, which is perfect for me. And I got to work with actors, be an actor, but also be a director, be a stage manager, be a costume assistant, I had the whole picture, and I'm a whole picture kind of person. And I love going down a rabbit hole into a very specific job, then coming out, then going to a rabbit hole of another specific job, then coming out, hence the logo of Arvold is a rabbit hole. And so my junior year, I always had like 15 jobs. I mean, I put myself through school. So I always had a million jobs, and I was really frustrated that I wasn't working in the film or television industry yet. And my junior year, I went to the associate dean, and I said, I'm going to quit school. I need to go work. I'm going crazy. And he said, let me make one call. And he called the casting director, and he said, you need to meet this girl. I was 19, and Jane Alderman met me, and she's like, I just knew for the second, because you were, DePaul won't like hearing this, but she's like, you were rebellious in your thinking. You didn't just go according to what they wanted. You always made your own path, and you have to be independent to be, to think like a casting director, because a casting director is really a producer, a director, and an actor all in one.
Yeah.
Because you have to have those skills. It doesn't mean it's not an exact science, but you have to have a creative instinct, and you have to love actors. So long story short, I got my internship with Jane. We were in the ABC building, downtown Chicago. And I had a little card table, like literally a square card table, and that she got out of storage for me to sit in the tiny office, and a chair. And I just started weeping. I just started weeping. And it was after Jane was on the phone, I think, talking to agents. There were headshots everywhere. This is way pre-computers. So it was, everything was just chaos, exactly what you'd think the stereotype was of a casting office, right? And she's like, what's wrong? And I said, I found my place. I was so happy. They were tears of utter joy, because she was doing business. She was advocating for artists. She was able to be an artist herself as well.
And this was your first day?
It's my first day of my internship.
And you knew from that.
It was like it's like love at first sight, right? It's just like boom. And I have not, and that was in 1990.
Yeah.
And I've only extrapolated from there. So like my anchor of casting, regardless of what else I'm doing, because I do several different things now, as you know, as we all grow and learn and want to expand our creativity, but my anchor is always casting, and it will always be.
That's amazing. It's a really cool story, and it's your superhero origin story, which is which is really cool. So I love that you got into how you define casting for yourself, and how it's a combination of a bunch of things. So I'd like for you to kind of expand on that a little bit, on for the people that are newer to the industry, and like we just said, when we are outside of the industry, we a lot of times don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So we only see like the actors and the directors, and that's it. So we don't really know that there's a casting director that has a job as well, and a really important job. So can you expand a little bit more on what is it that a casting director does, both from a business standpoint and also an artistic standpoint for the project?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to put it in the plainest terms possible, a casting director assembles the cast, which means any person who is speaking or is a principal role on the screen. That's what a casting director does. Extras casting does the same thing, but for non-speaking roles. And the casting director works on behalf of the production, both financially and also to support and expand the creative vision of the project. So you're working simultaneously with the producer or the line producer for finances and monies. And you're also working simultaneously with the director, writer, creator for their vision to really be fulfilled, but also possibly even exceed their expectations. You know, sometimes you bring someone in that they didn't expect and they're like, wait, that's even better or whatnot. So, so that's what we're there to do. And we work on behalf of production. And I think sometimes those newer to the industry get a lot of mixed signals about what a casting director does and thinks maybe a casting director also represents actors, but we don't. Agents and managers represent actors because they're working for the actor's best interest. And casting directors are working for production's best interest. So doing both is a conflict of interest.
Right. So that's where we hear a lot of times people throw around the term casting agent, but that doesn't really exist. There's the casting director and there's the talent agent.
Brilliant. Yes.
Well, here's a question, because you mentioned that. How do you balance working for the production and looking for production's best interest, both in terms of artistic and the business interests of the business, but also advocating for the actors that you know and love in your area that you've seen grow throughout the years?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, depending on the production itself, like anything, when you work with a team, you figure out the hierarchy, which is easy peasy in the film business because there's a very military-like hierarchy, which works very well because it's such a fast-paced, high-stakes business that you need that structure. Mm-hmm. But you also figure out those relationships of where there's wiggle room, where there's creativity, where there's not. And each production is very different. So with casting, it's the same thing. So I work hand in hand with the, creative visionary to try to fulfill that, but also with, the line producer or producer to make sure we have things budgeted properly. And so if there's this amazing actor, but they have to come in from somewhere outside of the area, but they were only budgeted as a local hire, there might be another role. This happened to me recently that actually was a lead role, and we happened to hire someone locally. So I got to get in there with my producer hat on saying, we just saved a bunch of money on this lead role. Do you think we could have this role, which is budgeted as local, up the ante a little bit to bring someone in who really will elevate the creative vision? And then they make the decision. But I'm able to really help navigate in certain situations. And usually the projects I work on, they hire me because that's something I love to do. And I love producing, and I have produced. So it's more of a tag team, or I see through the eyes of a producer to try to present the best scenario, et cetera. But I'll fight I can't even tell you how many times I've fought for actors and done things. I had someone self-tape, and they had to tape in their father's closet because it was the only place with all the clothing that would be good sound. And then their sister was taping them. And I wrote the writer a note saying, do you think you could make this? It was a teenager role, 2 years older, because then this, and maybe she could have been held back in a grade. And I go to lengths when I believe in somebody for something. And knock on wood, I was just talking this morning about something. I told a showrunner, please, I believe in this actor. And they're like, they're obviously a good actor, but I just don't think it's the right tone. And I'm like, can I bring them back a third time, work with them myself? I'll send you the tape. And if you don't see it, then that I have done everything I can do. But I'm so happy. And the showrunner, they were like, yep, go ahead, Erica, be my guest. Go ahead. If you're that passionate, go ahead. And I did. And literally the email I got back was, you are right. They are amazing. Hire them. And I go out on limbs. When I believe in someone, I go out on limbs and fight like that, in not a bad way, but it's and then sometimes it's the opposite. And the director, I really believe this. I'm like, I don't quite see it, but it's a collaboration, and it's a conversation, and it's all to serve the project, and there's so much nuance. There's creative taste, but truly, 80% of casting is organizing. It's making sure you've got people available, not available. It's making sure you've been thorough. It's making sure you know where to look quickly. It's making Sure, all the approvals. Like I have a project with 7 stages of approval. So it's 7 different emails. Each email has approximately 35 to 40 people on it. You have to put them in the right order politically. You have to know who to CC, who to BCC, who to put on the 2. And I mean, it is navigating a lot of stuff, you know, it's not just saying, oh, that actor's good at all.
And really quick, can you just explain then, what do you mean by approvals? What happens during the approval process?
So in an independent film where there's no one other than the writer, director, producer, and their own credit card paying for the film, that's one approval. That's that person that's helming that project, that has put in the money, that is directing, that is writing, that is producing, and that's your approval. So they pick the person, off you go. On studio projects of various sizes, there can be not only a handful, sometimes 20 producers and their assistants who all creatively need to approve based on their contracts or based on their position. There are production companies, there are co-production companies, there are studios, there are co-studio projects. So when I say layers of approval, it starts with that creative visionary, then it goes to the creative team, then sometimes it goes, like in television, sometimes it goes to the studio that's producing, then it goes to network, then it goes to, like, you just have these layers of approvals that get larger and larger. Kind of the fancier and the more complex the project is, there are more layers of approval.
The bigger budget the project is, the more money's on the line.
Yeah, usually. And it's a real, I mean, even with indies, sometimes the investors don't have approval, but sometimes the producer wants to keep them in the loop. So, and sometimes that's with the studio too. It's not official approval, but it is, what's it called? Courtesy approval. So there's a whole bunch of that too. Like, they really like to be kept in the loop. They actually don't have yay or nay rights, but what they think will influence another's yay or nay rights. Like, it can get crazy complex.
Really? Wow. Stuff that I'm learning brand new things just right now. That's awesome. Okay, let's backtrack a little bit to the overall casting process then. Let's say, and we're going to try to paint with a very broad brush here, because obviously every project is different. Even within individual project, every role is different, right? So let's just say you have one role on one project that goes out. You put the casting call out to agencies, and maybe you've also posted it up on Actors Access, and you get
breakdown and Actors Access are the most industry standard, as you know.
So let's say you get something like 1,000 submissions for this one role. What is your decision process on how to, and maybe you have time to see 30 auditions for that particular role, or whatever the number is. How do you whittle down that 1,000 to the number of people that you can extend an audition offer to?
So it's the same process. If I said to you right now, Kurt, if I said, we need to find the star of a young adult feature film, the content is young adult, and the star is someone who has a lot of growth in the movie and can start out kind of meek and end up really, really, really bold. Let's just say that's how it is. So you're probably already cataloging in your brain several names. Is it Julia Roberts? Is it Denzel Washington? Is it like who? Like, I don't know. There's like a bunch of people, and then maybe I'll say, actually, let's look for someone maybe in their 30s, or what I mean. So you start cataloging, right? So you have this. All of a sudden, you already have a vision of who it is.
Yeah.
So each individual in my company has that vision, and we have a shared vision that we've talked about in advance. So whomever, myself or any one of my associates or assistants who's looking at the pictures, is putting that filter on already. So
Okay.
they're looking for potential, like, ooh, yeah, I bet Kurt could do that role. He looks great. Look at him right here. Yep, I can see there, and I know his work. So I know he has the ability to do this and this. And, or if I don't know your work, I'm like, oh, but you look like it. And let me look at your resume. Oh yeah. Oh no, you could probably do this. So it's just a filter process. So it's going from the grand where everyone in the whole world is appropriate to
Right.
what serves that creative vision. So it's filter after filter after filter after filter. That's the whole process, no matter how many submissions there are, no matter how many auditions there are, because it all, like you said, it varies. I mean, it's impossible to know how many are in it. But I also always dare, if I can get on my soapbox for 1 second, I always dare actors, because one of the most common questions I get is, how many auditions do you look at, or how many things? And I respond by asking a question and then telling a story. So my question is always, would you audition differently if you knew you were 1 in 100 people or 1 in 1,000 people? Or if you were the only person, would you audition differently? Would you kind of phone it in and not work as hard? Well, inevitably the answer is no. And I think that's correct, because if you're going to phone it in when you know that, you might as well not audition at all, because you're not going to get it. Like, so it's like you're going to give it your all, no matter the numbers.
Right.
So what good does it do you to know the numbers? Like, really, really, what good does it do? And so now my example, if you can just bear with me, because I love this. For The Good Lord Bird, we had an amazing gentleman come in and talk to us about harassment, which is something we do on every project, right? Not to learn to harass, but to make sure we are articulate when we see harassment going on, right?
Right.
But it's called the harassment meeting, which makes me laugh. So, but it's like, hey, yeah, we're going to harassment meeting. Not to learn to do that, please. So anyway, he gave this amazing example. And I swear, to me, it's a parallel to anyone in the acting profession asking how many auditions you get, how many people you see. It's like all of those questions is, to me, like an unconscious bias. And the reason is, if you think of unconscious bias, and this is what the gentleman taught me, he gave an example of, let's just say you are driving a car and the car in front of you is driving poorly. If you make an assumption in your head about what that person looks like in the car in front of you, then you have an unconscious bias, right? Because you're imagining whatever it is that you're imagining. Well, to defeat that unconscious bias, first of all, you have to choose to go around the car, right? You want to get around that car going slow. And if in your brain you look over at that other driver, and that other driver is what your unconscious bias was, it makes it bigger in your brain, right? The unconscious bias grows. If that driver is not at all, zero, not like the opposite of what you would think in your head, right? Of whatever it is, whatever someone is picturing, whoever someone's picturing. Do you know what your brain does? It throws it away. It says, oh, that's okay. That's not the same. We still have the unconscious bias. The only way to defeat unconscious bias is to not look over and drive straight ahead and keep in your lane, period. That's the way you do not feed your brain to bias at all, or unconscious bias in particular. I mean, obviously we're talking about it being conscious now, but the idea is, so I use that as a parallel. First of all, I think it's really helpful in the world, because how great it is to just be like, no, you're not going to prove it or disprove it, because disproving it doesn't work.
Right.
Ignoring it works. That it doesn't get the attention, therefore it is defeated. So, so to me, asking for, and I know you weren't asking this, but anyone who's like, I want to know how many numbers, I want to know this, I want to know this, I want to know this. That's all like stuff that doesn't serve the craft or the work. So might as well just look straight ahead and be like, this is what I do. I'm an actor. I am joyful when I am asked to do a character, and I'm going to create this character, and I'm going to do the best I can to serve the character. And then boom, that's it. I love my art. Bye-bye, go into the next, And to me, that is just such a healthy attitude, and not getting bogged down by stuff that just, I don't know, what do you do? I mean, it's a genuine question I have for you. Like, what do you do with that information? If you know 30 people are auditioning, like, what does it do? What does it change with your approach? Anything?
What I like to tell people, especially those that are newer to the industry, I'll give people some example numbers, but not as a way of I think the reason why I give people example numbers is more to show that you're going against a lot of people, and there may be, and there's, as you obviously know, there's all kinds of different factors that go into a casting decision. So it's also to tell people not to beat themselves up if you don't necessarily get the part, right? So it's like you weren't the only person up for the role, right? And you could have had an amazing audition, and just because you didn't book it, there are all kinds of things that go into this, right? And there's also the thing of if you did get an audition, that's a win in itself, because there could have been 1,000 people submitted and you were one of 50 or whatever that got an audition. So that's where the numbers, that's where I like to use the numbers to help people out.
I think that's useful. I like that. Thank you for clarifying, because so many times I'm asked those questions and I'm like, but hold on a minute. Like people get, I don't know, there's a focus on it that maybe doesn't need to be so focused, but explaining it like you just did, it really makes sense. And I would go as far as, if you're asked to audition, even if you don't get the role, which,
that's most of the time. Yeah.
That's the likelihood.
Yeah.
You're contributing to that project. Like, no, you don't have credit on the screen. No, you don't have money in your back pocket from doing it, but you are contributing to that creative vision. So as an artist, purely as an artist, you're making that project better. You are helping that casting office find a cast member. You are helping the writer and the producer and the director, whomever is watching the tapes, do their job better. You are helping, even if the casting assistant and casting intern are doing the first round of tape watching to narrow something down. Let's say we have a worldwide search for something, right? And have 20,000 tapes. Well, then there's a whole team that watches things, right?
Yeah. You
are training them. You are literally giving them the opportunity to learn to be discerning and creating a future casting director. There's all this stuff about auditioning where you're contributing to your industry just by literally auditioning, and it's not about booking the gig.
Yeah, I really like that, in terms of we're all in this together and we're all trying to help each other out type of thing. But then also, everybody also wants to think, oh, what's in it for me? I know I'm contributing, but what's in it for me? And there's also the element of every time you're auditioning, you're also auditioning for future projects too. And not just future projects. You're also auditioning for that project in other roles. There have been plenty of times in my career, and I'm sure you've done it as a casting director, where you see someone for a particular role, but then a light bulb goes off and there's like, wait, there's this other role that they would fit perfectly, and they happen to, and you extend another audition and they book that other role.
Yeah, I mean, so many times. Or if someone's working on, like, I'll work on 2, maybe 3 projects at once. I don't like taking more than that because I can't give it my creative attention. But if someone might be right for another project, like that happens a lot too.
Yeah.
And so, it's really, in this industry is relationship driven, and not like, hello, let me shake your hand and talk to you for 400 years. It's relationship driven because it's about feeling each other's sensibilities and knowing what genre one likes. I mean, I have a voice as a casting director, right? I have genres that I lean into probably more than others. My biggest thing as a casting director, because when I produce, I have a very distinct voice on what I'm attracted to as a producer. And when I direct, I have a very distinct voice of what I'm attracted to as a director. But as a casting director, absolutely, there are things that people hire me again and again and again and again for. And then there's also my want to juggle, because, you know, if you do too many, you know, traumatic dramas, at the end of the day, you just want to do a comedy, right? And you imagine you're working on it. I mean, just like
same thing for acting. Yeah.
Exactly. You're like, so you might have your kind of bullseye, but then you like playing around the edges too and stuff. And when I first moved to Los Angeles, I did half-hour comedy, and I worked at Jeff Greenberg's office. And one of the shows that, I was more on Wings and Almost Perfect, which were Sheila Guthrie's shows, and she was his associate at the time. But then I worked with Kathy Ranking. Can you believe that? Did you know that, Kathy?
No, I did not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, from 1996. That's how we worked. We worked together in the same office.
Wow.
I love her. And but she was the main assistant on Frasier, but I was in the office. So if they needed an extra hand or whatever, I was the, you know, second, third, fourth banana or whatever to Kathy. So, but I learned very quickly for myself that I had an internal creative rhythm and a pace that I liked to work at. And I certainly can do half hour. I love doing half hour. It's a great challenge. But if I were completely left to my own devices, I am built for longer format. So that's why like limited series are so great right now, because that's the thing. But also even feature film. And after I did that gig, my first film in LA was called The Horse Whisperer. And that's where I was like, oh, this is so different. And I could, you know, spend 6 months looking for however many characters, and, you know, and it was a long process. That one was extremely long. And so, you know, we don't have the luxury of that today, honestly, because budgets and the way the movie business is, it's not like it used to be. I'll never forget. I think we did a search for a character a long time ago when I was in Chicago, and I can't remember the show it was. Anyway, but it was a year to find one for a leading role, but it was a long time, you know. And
contrast that to one episode of a TV show that might be, you know, 3 days. You got 3 days to find someone.
Exactly. Or for The Horse Whisperer, right? We had people I mean, Scarlett Johansson ended up getting the role. She was 10 or 11 or 12. But I mean, we had people all over the world auditioning for this role. And it took longer then too, because we didn't have internet. Like one little girl, I think she was in Ireland, but she had to go to London, so then she could like patch in via video. So here we are right now, on this. And yet it took like a full week and probably 7 people to set this up for us at the time. But really knowing your rhythm, I think as an actor, not only as a casting director or a director or producer, but as an actor, is really good, because it's informational, and then you could manipulate that. If you know you're fast talking and all of a sudden it's this very, you know, foreign film-esque, drawn out, you know, let's say it's Chloe Zhao's new project, right? Did you see No Man's Land? Right. So
I have not yet, but I do plan to. Yeah.
You have to watch it.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's not going to be a fast talking, you know, half hour comedy. You're going to have to alter your own energy to match what I consider part of the given circumstances of auditioning is that information, you know, the genre.
The
format.
Well, what's because of the pandemic has affected everything in terms of the industry, but casting specifically, where everything has gone to self-tape. And in our region, it was primarily a self-tape market already, but now even more so, where callbacks and everything was now either can be self-tape or via Zoom or whatever. What's in your opinion, what do you love most about in-person auditions, and what do you love most about doing self-tapes?
Oh my gosh. All right, let me give my thoughts, because I have a lot of them.
Okay.
First of all, I want to let you know that even though things are via tape, because television moves so quickly, usually the callbacks via Zoom or via some other platform are for series regulars, but not, and maybe a guest star, maybe, but not any recurring co-stars or co-stars. So that's the division there. And then they're hired off a tape. And then in film, I have had only the day players hired off a tape, but I've even had day players come in via Zoom. Like film has more time. And so directors want to meet the actors. And honestly, the actors should be meeting the director, because it is so hard going from a self-tape to a set where you've met nobody. And like the live audition process, to answer your question, helps that transition from, oh, you're a real person, I see you, oh, I might recognize you on the set, or I can feel your energy on the set, or whatever. And so it serves as a really important part of the process that's been kind of taken away from us right now. And I mean, in the self-tape world, we can invite more people to audition because it's quicker to go through self-tapes. We can invite people from much further away that we couldn't see in person. Like there's all sorts of benefits to that first go round, which is called pre-reads, to be self-tape, because it offers so much more access to actors for projects. And then it allows us to really have a wider reach and feel like we've, you know, gotten the very best person for the job, you know.
Right.
And I'm typically hired for challenging shows. I mean, that's my bullseye. They hire me when they don't think anyone can really do the job.
Yeah.
That's like, and I hear that again and again. And of course I'm like, yeah, man, sign me up. I want a challenge.
Yeah.
But the in-person, there's nothing like sharing thoughts, direction, just sharing space and feeling the vibe. And I mean, I certainly don't miss, like, I'm crazy allergic to cigarette smoke. Like I walk to the other side of the street if someone's smoking, and I'm in the hospital, it gives me epilepsy. So like like an actor comes in after having a cigarette in their car, even though they wash their hands, like I can't even watch them in person, because all I'm doing is trying to hold my breath so I don't have to go to the hospital. So it's like, that's the stuff that's solved, you know?
Yeah.
But the stuff, I mean, I can't wait to get an actor in there and give direction and play and talk and get to know someone. It also takes a lot longer. I cannot do an in-person session for less than 15 minutes a person. I literally can't. I try always to do 10 minutes, which is standard. My office every time. They're like, Erica, you're behind. I'm like,
I wanted to tell you, I wanted to mention this in the beginning, but I forgot. My first ever TV show audition was for House of Cards back in 2015.
really?
And this was before I had moved to Atlanta. I was still living in Cleveland, Ohio at the time. My agent was Heyman Talent in Louisville. So they submitted me, and I got an audition for the role of technician. And I still remember my audition line was, "Yes, sir, I'm ready when you are." You know, it's one of those, you know, the first time you ever get a TV show audition, I worked that line like 5,000 times, probably recorded it 35 times, and then sent it in, and then was like worried about it for the next 3 months. And it was really fun getting that for the first time. But this kind of goes back to, you know, as actors, one of the kind of rule of thumb pieces of advice that actors get is, after you finish an audition, try to forget about that, right? And move on as best you can. But when I was living in a smaller market like Cleveland, I would get 1, maybe 0 film or television auditions per year, right? So when you get that one, it's like, this is my one shot this year, right? To potentially get on a show or get into a movie. And then it wasn't until, you know, coming down to Atlanta, getting into this market, a much bigger market, and seeing multiple auditions per week, and now realizing, oh, okay, well, this is much easier to forget about that previous audition because I have one to work on now. Whereas back then, forget about it. I was thinking about that House of Cards audition for, you know, up until the next one, the year later.
And I think it's okay, because here's the thing. It's kind of, what do you want to call it? It's like between a rock and a hard place, right? So when you're starting out, there are less auditions because they forget about it. But like, there's a part of a newer actor's naivete, if you will, or even hope that is a beautiful thing about being an artist. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I mean, even, you know, if you look up the word amateur, it comes from amateur, right? Which is French, and it literally means for the love of it. That's what it means. And so if we forget our amateurity, or we are amateurity, if we embrace both the amateur and the maturity, it's like, that's where one wants to be. And so being an amateur and being in that position of absolutely ever hopeful that you booked, like that might sustain your maturity later, honestly.
That's true. Yeah. No, you're right.
You'll
right.
always
That's
remember
true.
that. Kurt, you will always remember that. You just shared that story so beautifully. And that's probably one of your anchors.
Oh, I totally, I remember that. And then I remember the first time I booked a TV show, and 5 years ago, whatever it was, I remember all my lines from that day. None of my other, like everything after that until now, like I do something on set, and by the next day I've forgotten all my lines, you know, but that one from 5 years ago, I remember all those lines.
It's so, but I think that's what's so great, because those are informative. It's like me crying at the Men in Extended casting, right? And or me, you know, poking around the set on Backdraft, just like unbelievably amazed. Like these are informative things. So one always wants to go faster. And I remember when I was like 16, of course I wanted to be 27, right? Like I wanted to skip ages 7, 8, or 17, 18, 19, 20, whatever. I just wanted to get to the good stuff and not have to be a teenager anymore. And literally, it's like any career. And I think sometimes acting or careers in the arts, it's, you know, there's an extreme example of like, do you want to be an astronaut? Well, then you have to go train and go to school for this very specific bit. But like an acting career is the same. It's just, it's not as formalized, because you don't have to go to school like you do to be an astronaut. You can, and it's very helpful, but you don't have to. And so, but always knowing that, it's okay that I'm 10 years old equivalent in this career right now. And next year I'm going to be 11 in this career, and that's okay. And knowing it's okay where you are in your career. That's why I think I like working on so many things. When I say I juggle, and like there are certain jobs that are maybe fancier because they're bigger and more well-known, but I also, like when I was casting Lincoln, I was also casting a spec commercial for GE for some local Virginia filmmakers. And afterwards, they figured out that I was casting Lincoln at the same time. And they were like, how could you possibly do our teeny little project? And I said, because I like juggling, and I like the diversity of projects so much, in terms of that one's diverse because one's so extremely small and one's so huge. But I also feel like my job as a casting director is to find actors that fit with, I'm a matchmaker. So if I have a diverse selection of projects, I just right this second, right now, I'm doing a photo shoot. And an actor can get great experience by being in front of the camera on a photo shoot, speaking. And my associate and assistant are taking a load of the work themselves. I still oversee, but they're getting great practice doing what they do, right? So it's stretching all of us. And then on the other hand, I'm also doing something that's, you know, larger scope, but nothing is better than the other. It's like an actor doesn't get a role for this, you know, big fancy role on a huge network show that everyone knows about, but they might get this role. So it's never, oh, you're bad. Like casting directors do not judge ever good or bad. They only judge, is this a match? And if it's not, where else can there be a match? Because I love this person. I love this Kurt. He's from Ohio. He's got such potential. He's so photogenic. Where am I going to put him? Well, maybe he doesn't go here, but I'll keep him in my head because maybe he'll go here, you know? And that's the art of it.
I love that, thinking about it in terms of matching rather than good or bad. That's great. I want to do one quick thing before we finish. I have a few movie quotes that I pulled out, and I want to see if you can identify these quotes from projects that you've worked on. They're pretty recognizable. I think.
No, now you're gonna make it hard. I suck at these games. Okay, I'll try. I'm always down to try anything.
I have a bunch of them listed out. I'm gonna pick the top two. I'm gonna pick the top two that I think you'll get. So
oh my God.
First one. There's no crying in baseball.
Oh yes, A League of Their Own.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. See, these are gonna be easy.
Okay, thank you.
This one. All right. You know what? You got the first one. Maybe we'll pick someone a little bit harder. I love that woman. I love her more than sharks love blood.
Oh my golly.
I'm trying to do the accent.
I know you're giving me amazing clues.
I'm trying to do the accent as well. I love
no
that
idea.
woman. I love her more than sharks love blood.
Well, my first thought was, are you doing a Joel Edgerton impression from Loving? But then I'm like, I love that woman would absolutely be from Loving, but not more than Sharks Love Blood. I don't think.
This is actually not from a movie. It's from a show.
Oh yeah. Oh, maybe it's House of Cards then.
Yeah.
Okay.
House of Cards. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Last one. I feel like you should get this one. Quiet, please. Quiet, please. You're not dismissed. Stay in your seats until you're dismissed. Okay, you can go.
If that's the one where I played a role, I'm going to die that you found that out.
That is the teacher from The Homecoming.
That's the role you do. And I literally could not walk and talk. I think that, oh my gosh, that is hysterical. I did remember it. I can't believe it. Did you see it?
I did. I found it. If you would like me to play the clip, I can play the clip right now.
You can totally. I haven't seen it. I don't think.
You haven't seen the clip at all?
I don't think I've ever seen it. No.
Really?
I just remember they wanted me. First of all, they wouldn't believe I was a casting director and thought for sure I was an actor who was just casting to be cast. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm a casting director. And then they're like, well, you didn't audition anyone and you have to do it. And then I was like, okay, but it was a great experience to be a casting director because I had to wait in a honey wagon and I had to walk across the dolly tracks and I couldn't not look down to walk across dolly tracks.
Yeah.
And we did it like 100 million times. And finally the last, he's like, I remember it's Rocky Ford directed it. He said, stand there, don't do anything but your line, just yell it out there. And I was so frustrated that I just did the damn line. And he's like, we got it.
Well, here is the damn line.
I'm sorry, homecoming has been canceled. This matter's gotten way out of control. Please, Tori.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
Chris is on the move. Whole school's marching on us. They're in Fisher's Field. Let's go. Come on.
You're not dismissed. You are not dismissed. Stay in your seats until you're dismissed. Hey.
You've never seen that before?
I don't know it. I might have seen it on the premiere night.
Okay.
That is so wonderfully embarrassing. But you know what I'm so proud of is I cast Amy Garcia in her first that was her first role
Oh,
ever.
that's amazing.
Ever. And I cast her. And like, that's what I remember about that project is casting Amy Garcia. So you can tell where my priorities were. Oh my gosh, that is crazy. Will you like send it to me? Or
absolutely. I'll send you that clip and I'll send you the link. It's the movie is free to stream on Tubi right now. All I did, I clicked on that. I went to your IMDb. I saw that you had a couple acting credits.
Yeah.
So I clicked on the first one, which was that. And then it just showed up and the movie said, you can watch this for free on Tubi. And I clicked on it. And, I didn't watch the whole movie, but I scrolled all the way through and I saw a bunch of blonde hair taking up half the screen. I was like, maybe that's Erica. And I skipped to that part of the movie and it was right there.
That was literally, hold on, what year was that from?
90, somewhere in the 90s.
94, 95?
Let me see.
How many years ago was that?
On IMDb, it's 96. So maybe you shot it in 95-ish.
Yeah, that would make sense because I moved to LA in 96. And that was the
Amazing.
first movie I got casting by credit on. That was my very first movie that I cast the whole movie myself. Jane Alderman supported me to go do it, but she knew I was growing. And so, oh my gosh.
That's incredible.
I am so impressed and horrified all at the same time that you found that with that clip.
All right, well, we're almost out of time here, so I'd love for you to share where people that are watching can find you. We never got to talk about your Arvold education, but obviously you teach classes.
I'll give you the website for that.
Yeah,
and then find it. But the well, then maybe we should have a part 2.
We could definitely do a part 2 for sure.
All right. So the education website is arvoldwarnerstudio.com. And that's really a passion. I mean, I just told you my mother's a professor. Like I've had that passion for as long as I've been casting and have been teaching as long as I've been casting. But now I've paired up with Richard Warner, who's an unbelievable historian of the craft and coach of many, many incredible people. I mean, he was the on-set coach during Good Lord Bird. He is a master of craft. And anyway, and we're growing our education department. You can check it out because there's so many offerings and membership and all sorts of things. And then totally separately from that, my main website is arvold.com. And so, you know, there's so much to look at in both of those places. And yeah, it's got all the information for anything you'd ever want to know on those 2 websites.
And if they ever want to look for projects that you are casting, if actors are interested, you post a lot of them directly up on Breakdown Services and they can find them on there, right?
Yeah, we use Breakdown all the time. And then on certain projects, we use Actors Access, which means you don't have to have an agent if you're directly submitting. So yeah, we do that quite often, actually, depending on where we are. Like I just did a movie in Kentucky and a movie in North Carolina. And so sometimes that's a little more prevalent because Atlanta has so many agents and actors with agents that we don't find it as necessary to put Atlanta-based projects on Actors Access, but pretty much other areas of the Mid-Atlantic we do.
Gotcha. All right, Erica, thank you so much for this. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Oh, wait, I have one more thing I forgot.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a while, but we do have an Arvold official YouTube channel that we have a bunch of things on. And then Arvold official is our handle across all the social media.
Great. I'll post all those links down in the description of this video. And yeah, I highly recommend anybody watching to check out your YouTube videos because like you say, you and Richard have shorter clips of probably what you guys talk about in your classes, right? And so that's where people can get like a taste of, you know, both of your teaching styles. And yeah, there's really great information on those videos. So
kudos to you for doing this because it's really nice, Kurt, that you're advocating for artists and providing information and like it's just really cool.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it part of it came from the pandemic. You know, when everything shut down, we had nothing to do for a while. I needed a creative outlet, and for me, it was this. And everybody else kind of found their thing. And I think that was one of the silver linings of what happened. Everybody found a new thing to kind of pursue, and for me, it was this. And I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Erica.
Really good depth of field in your.
I'm using a professional camera hooked up to my and all this stuff.
I need to learn how to do that. Maybe I'll talk to you offline and be like, how do I not use the fisheye of a Mac, you know?
Right. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Erica.